Hi everyone. So now on the third video, I wanna move on with the course talking about speed, velocity, and average speed, instantaneous speed, average velocity, instantaneous velocity. Okay. So speed is one of those quantities that you are really very much familiar with. So you say, for example, I go from school to home and it takes maybe 15 minutes for me to commute. And because you already know, you go to Google Map and then you see what is the distance between the two, and then you divide the distance by the amount of time that you spend during your commute, and then you get some number, and then you say, okay, on average, I go, for example, 40 miles an hour, something like that. So speed is something that we are all very familiar with. In regards to velocity, however, velocity is something that it's a more physics related quantity. It's something that we build in physics because there are other things that are based on this. So I'm going to be elaborating this video about on speed, velocity, the differences, and whatnot. Starting from speed. Speed, as common sense wise as you already know, is the distance between 2 points divided by the time that takes you to go from point A to point B. So if point A to point B you go like this line that's not really straight, far cry from straight line is going to be your distance over the time that passed in order for you to go from A to B. This is speed. This is what we say every day in our conversations with people on the street. Now here there is another quantity called velocity. To give you an overview about this guy, this is actually a vector quantity. Remember I talked about vectors? So this guy has both a magnitude and a direction associated with it. Now, what velocity is basically displacement over time. So this is speed is distance over time, velocity is displacement over time. Now, what it means when we say displacement. Displacement literally means that we draw a straight line from the beginning to the end, and this is called displacement. And I didn't say the very last word that I wanted to. Displacement vector. Why? See the arrow? That means displacement is a vector. So when this becomes a vector, velocity becomes a vector too, just because time is a bunch of numbers, like 2 hours, 3 minutes, 4 seconds. So as long as this is only a number, vector divided by a ridiculous number, it just gives you the vector back, right? So velocity is a vector, speed is scalar. In the definition of speed, you never saw me draw any arrow of any sort. So speed is a scalar quantity, velocity is a vector quantity, and now let's be a little bit more specific. When we say speed, we are kind of, when we say speed, let's say, okay, so let's talk about this. So I go from Los Angeles to, let's say, Phoenix, Arizona, And it usually should take maybe like 6 hours, 7 hours or whatever, but it takes maybe 10 hours for me to go from Los Angeles to Phoenix, Arizona. So, the highways are like this. Maybe at some point I have to take a ramp. Maybe at some point I have to make a U-turn. All that sort of stuff taken into account takes me 10 hours to get there. Okay. Halfway, maybe like during this trip, I may get off the car just to take some gas or go to bathroom or go eat somewhere. Those are included in this 10 hours where my car is sitting there, is stopped, it's parked, and it's not moving. Average speed basically is related to this sort of stuff. So average speed tells you what is your speed on average. Sometimes you speed up, sometimes you slow down, sometimes you're parked and take your gas, sometimes you're parked and go eat something. Those are all included in the average speed. So when you say average speed, you never mention at every single second what your speed is, right? So that's that. Instantaneous speed, however, deals with those situations. Deals with the situations where you actually are talking about exact speed at some second, an exact amount of time. That is given by the speedometer of your car. So you're driving, and if you're parked, then this is 0. Then if you're just going, moving faster and faster, the arrow goes towards, directs towards different numbers. That is called instantaneous speed. So that was about average speed, instantaneous speed. So that's that. Now let's talk about velocity here. When I talk about velocity, let's just write it better. When I talk about velocity, I don't care what happens in between. I don't care if I make a U-turn, if I take a ramp at some point. I don't care. What I care is where I started off with initial position, and the final position. And I basically draw an arrow. This length is my displacement. We have the same exact average and instantaneous for velocity as well. So we have average displacement, we have average velocity, exact same way. Now here is the thing. There could be the case where you say, well, I go from home to school. I go from home to school, and then I come back home. Your velocity here, this is a vector. We denote it by V with the vector on the top. The velocity is dead zero. Why? Because initial and final positions are at the same location, are your home. However, so this is regardless of how much you spend. So in 4 hours, in 30 minutes, in 4 minutes, whatever it is. As long as the displacement is dead zero, namely the initial and final positions are at the same location, you are going to be having your velocity being zero. So get used to velocity being zero. However, you are having a non-zero speed for this commute. So you go from home to school, maybe 8 miles. you come back another 8 miles, that gives you 16 miles, and then you go, for example, you spend 30 minutes for that. So 16 miles over 30 minutes, that gives you the average speed for this commute. Okay, so I just want you to make sure you understand speed, velocity, the differences between them, what displacement is, and what distance is. Distance is what we use every day in our everyday language. Displacement is more science word. It's more physics related. And I will talk about displacement in my next video than when I talk about acceleration, because velocity is essentially the reason why acceleration is basically the reason why we introduce velocity in the first place. So stay tuned for the next video about acceleration. Bye.